Quick poll. Who here has been on a Jet2 flight or a Jet2 holiday before? Excellent. Well, I hope after the end of this session, I hope you'll all go out and book something because, do great holidays, do great data. Hopefully, we've got the intersection of interest here. So, hello. This talk is about how we model and visualize millions of rows of granular hotel review data in Tableau to spot trends and fix issues and just make sure that nothing beats a Jet2 holiday for our customers. I'm Gwilym.
And I'm Bronwyn.
And we'll be talking about hotel reviews, why they matter to us, how we track them, and how we visualize them to make sure that people have a lovely holiday with us. So I love explaining what we do at Jet2 because it's really easy. We take people on holiday. Jet2 is the UK's biggest tour operator. We fly from 14 UK bases to loads of destinations across Europe and North Africa. And behind the scenes, we need a ton of data to be able to do that safely and efficiently in order to turn that data into insights to take people on holiday. Now, a lot of this is quite complicated, but there's some of the stuff that we do at Jet2. Our overall business model is quite simple. If customers are happy with us on holiday, they come back. That's fantastic. And if they're not happy, they don't, which is less great for us. The tricky thing is finding out exactly what makes people happy so that we can keep offering that product and those experiences, and what exactly makes people unhappy so that we can sort it out. So let's take this highly technical diagram. Imagine yourself as one of our customers. You're going on a Jet2 holiday. You've taken off and you're on the plane somewhere hopefully a bit warmer and sunnier than here. You've taken off, you're on the plane, and you get to the hotel. And because nothing beats a Jet2 holiday, you're probably having a lovely time at the hotel. Then after your holiday, you head back home, and hopefully you've had such a nice time on holiday that you book another holiday with us very, very soon. Now that's exactly the kind of cycle that we want to see, right? You're happy as a customer, you come back, we're happy as the holiday provider, everything's good. That's the cycle we want. But sometimes people don't enjoy it so much, and then they leave for other holiday providers next time, and that's what we want to avoid. So let's focus on the unhappy customers first. If people are unhappy and they don't come back, then we'll see it in our results eventually, but we won't know why. All that we'll see is that the number of customers we've got is going down and the sales are going down, but we don't know what the problem is or how to fix it. And it's actually the same thing with the happy customers. It's great that they're booking holidays with us again, but we still want to know what it is that they like about us so that we can make sure that we don't change the thing that makes it special for them, so that we can keep offering the thing that they really, really like. And this is why we need reviews, right? So if customers write a review then about what they liked and about what they didn't like, then, well, firstly, we can understand what matters to people across millions of Jet2 customers a year, and we can actually do something about it. So we can make sure that that offering stays good. We can also see what people don't like. We can make sure that if there's any issues at the hotels, we can take it up with the hotels to fix it, to fix those problems. And then we get people back into the loop where people go on holiday, they have a great time, they come back home, book another holiday, everyone's happy. And that is exactly what we're doing with the written reviews that we've got right now. So I'll walk you through an example to show how we turn written reviews into data. So I'll start with probably the most famous hotel review of all time, which is Hotel California by the Eagles. The Eagles wrote this in 1977. This was several years before anyone invented Google Maps or TripAdvisor. So back in the 70s, if you wanted to leave a public review of a hotel, you had to record a whole album about it and release it on vinyl to distribute it. Things have changed now, but it remains one of the most famous hotel reviews of all time. Their review was quite long, several verses in it, so I've edited it for clarity. We stayed at the Hotel California. It was such a lovely place. Plenty of room at the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Right, let's break that down into the data behind it. So each review is linked to one property and one property only. Nice and simple so far. This review is about the Hotel California. Each review is made up of one or more mentions. So mentions are like discrete bits of the review which are about an identifiable thing. So there's 4 mentions in this review. We've got such a lovely place. We've got mention number 2, plenty of room at the Hotel California. Mention number 3, you can check out anytime you like. Mention number 4, you can never leave. Now, each mentions have concepts, so a thing that the mention is about. So the first mention about it being such a lovely place is probably about the hotel decor. The second mention about plenty of room at the Hotel California, that's a comment about the hotel availability. You can check out anytime you like. That seems to me to be about the 24-hour reception. And you can never leave. That's about the existential horror of not being able to leave the hotel. Now, in this example, every single mention just has one concept, but you can have multiple concepts per mention. So, for example, if someone wrote that the restaurant was nice and cold, then that's got two concepts, restaurant and temperature. Or if there was a bad review and someone said that the swimming pool was full of rats, then that's two concepts as well. It's the swimming pool and pests. So each mention can have multiple concepts. Then finally, each mention has a sentiment. It's pretty binary, positive or negative. And then, so if we take the first mention about the hotel decor, it's positive, they like that. Second mention, plenty of room, sounds like they like the hotel room availability. Third mention, you can check out anytime you like, they really like the 24-hour reception, but they did not like not being able to leave the hotel, so that gets a negative. So there's a whole separate process that does all the encoding of the mentions and the concepts, and that's something that's handled by a separate team, so we'll fast forward over that part. But yeah, we'll look at how these reviews turn into the data itself. The traditional approach would be just be a big old table, right? And it's a fairly simple one to build. We've got the property key, the property name, the mention key, the concept name, mention sentiment, the date of the review, and the reviewer name. A table like this would give us all that we need to be able to do the analytics that we need on the hotel reviews. The problem is, it is a lot of data. We have 7,500 properties with reviews, so 7,500 hotels. We have 5.6 million reviews like this, so that Hotel California, that's one of many, many millions. We have an average of just over 5 mentions per review, and we've got an average of 1.4 concepts per review. So this like multiply it out, and we get about 40 million rows. Now, that's not too bad, 40 million rows, even if it is going to grow over time. But you know, we want it to be much, much bigger, right? We want more people to leave reviews, so we want to try to incentivize customers to leave reviews to tell us what they liked and they didn't like. We want to grow the number of reviewers. Like, we're also a growing company, you know, we're opening new bases all the time, we're opening new destinations all the time, so we want to add to this number of hotels. We don't want 7,500 hotels, we want way more than that. So we want to increase the number of hotels that there are reviews for. And we also want to give ourselves scope for linking other stuff in. So, for example, under the big old table approach, if you bring in the hotel managers, you could join that in. Well, if there's multiple managers per hotel, you'll multiply that out by the number of managers. Again, if we wanted to bring in information about the services that each hotel offers, then you join that in. So maybe you want to filter to just the hotels that have swimming pools to look at reviews for that. Well, then you've got to take all of the categories of things that hotels have and then join out the rows in the big table, explodes it massively. So that's why we've gone down the modeling and relationships route for this instead. So this is what we've done. I've cut it down to one long, completely unreadable fact table. It's the exact same granularity as the big table that you've seen before. So it's by property, by mention, by review, by sentiment, by date. But it's just integers at this point. So you can bung an absolute ton of rows into there and not worry about the memory because it's just integers. It's fine. It'll work really, really quick. We can then add a few different slimmed down dim tables to it. So we've got dim property, so only 7,500 rows in this. So instead of multiplying that 7,500 hotel names out by however many millions of reviews that we've got, we just bring it in once, 7,500 rows, one small dim table, way quicker. Join that up on property key. We've got dim sentiment. It's literally this. This is the whole table, dim sentiment. It's got positive, negative, neutral, unknown. That's way less data than making the big old table. Bring in dim date, join it in on date key. So we'll have maybe 1,000 rows or so for that, for like 3 years of history. Then bring in the concepts. That's a little harder because we need the bridge table, but it's not too much. So I'll move on again. We have the fact table. The first bridge table we bring in, we join a mention, we bring through the unique list of every single mention and every single concept in that mention. This one is also going to be pretty long as a table, a fact table, but it's, again, it's just integers, so it's fine. It's nice and lightweight. Then you can bring in the concept dim. I think we've got about 500, is it about 500 concepts? I think it's something along that line.
It's a lot.
Yeah, we've got point is we've got a lot of concepts. There's about 500 things that a hotel review might be about. So we bring all of those in the dim concept table once. So this is much, much easier than creating the big old table approach. So after all that, yeah, instead of one big table, we have we end up with a fairly simple data model here. And then in terms of what the data actually looks like or what it feels like, it actually feels a bit more like this. We've got two big tables, but they're just big, long fact tables with integers only, and then a handful of tiny, tiny dimension tables. And this gives us the exact same information as the big old table approach, but in a much more like streamlined and efficient way, with taking like way less data in, and the refresh times are much, much quicker. So yeah, it's all a lot more manageable. Now, for what it's worth, you can do a lot of this analytics straight in Snowflake, and we often do that for like ad hoc queries or finding stuff. So for example, here's some simple code that I prepared earlier. I've brought through all reviews looking for aircon. It's nice that I'm like looking at a massive loud aircon thing right there. It's thematic. Yeah, bringing all reviews about aircon, grouping them by date, and I'm counting the number of reviews in total, and also counting the number of positive reviews, so that I can take the ratio of positive out of total. And we can do some nice insights on here just to begin with. So we have this is just the count of reviews over time. We can see that it peaks in the summer. This might be what you expect with aircon. But also, like, we're a holiday business, right? Like, you can plot pretty much anything about Jet2's data. It will look like that over the summer, whether it's like the sales or the passengers or complaints or positive things. Like, all of our data looks like this because it correlates with people going on holiday mostly in the summer. So yeah, it kind of tracks with what we'd expect. But then if we look at the sentiment, this is the proportion of reviews of aircon. This is the proportion of positive reviews of aircon over time. Interesting, like the reviews are most negative. I was hoping for a big screen here that I could point at, so I'm going to come over here. The reviews are most negative in this like winter and spring dip instead of the summer. So this is where people are saying that they've gone on holiday to the hotel. It's like nice and balmy. It's like 18, 20 degrees, but the aircon is stuck on and they can't turn it off, so their room is too cold. Then during the summer, yes, you do still have the complaints about, we're in the Mediterranean and it's 40 degrees and the aircon isn't working. But we also have the comments that goes, we're in the Mediterranean and it's 40 degrees, but the room's nice and cold. So we have like the positive and the negative side. And this is how we can track stuff. Like, doing it in Snowflake is all well and good, but like, I'd have to, if I wanted to do this across all of the 500 different concepts and across individual hotels, I'd have to run that code like a ton of times over and over again for everything that I wanted to check. Not scalable, not fun. So this is where Tableau comes in. This is why we want to dump it all in one big Tableau data model, so that people can interact with it and answer stuff on the fly. So speaking of which, over to Bron.
Thanks, Gwilym. All right, so as you may have guessed it, to be able to scale this in Tableau, we are using multiple fact relationships. I think most of us here are going to be familiar with that functionality, but if you're not, it was a feature introduced in 24.2, and it allows you to add multiple base tables into your model and then relate them using relationships. So what you see here, again, I wish this was a little bit bigger, so sorry for the people at the back. But what you'll see here is exactly what Gwilym has taken us through, but within the context of Tableau. And you might see, or the people at the front will see anyway, that we have additional tables, and that's because actually in reality there's a lot more insight that we can get for reviews, such as the website the review was published to and the language it was written within. This makes up the core of our model, but we've actually gone beyond just the reviews themselves, which brings me on to our second base table, fact management response. So when a customer leaves a review, the property can actually respond to it. So here we have the number of reviews the property has responded to, the website and date they responded, and what property the review was for. And this is at a monthly grain, and where multiple fact relationships can be really powerful, because what we can do here is actually add this monthly grain table and relate it to our existing fact review mention, despite that being at a daily grain. So with multiple fact relationships, it actually gives us more flexibility within our model, because with traditional joins, this wouldn't really be possible. You'd either have to duplicate your management response data by joining it to daily mentions, or you'd have to lose your detail in your mentions and actually aggregate your detail up to be able to join it to monthly management responses. And then our final base table is review scores. So review scores are percentages calculated based on the number of reviews and the type of them, type being neutral, positive, negative, etc. So say if a review score was 100%, this actually tells us that that property is getting a lot of positive reviews over a long period of time. So this just adds kind of another layer to our review data, because it will tell us at a glance if the property is delivering a good customer service across kind of all major categories. Those major categories mirror exactly what we get for reviews, what Grillem has taken us through. So categories could be, say, general facilities, staff, entertainment, things like that. And again, this is where multiple fact relationships can be really, really powerful, because if later down the line there are additional metrics or dimensions that we want to kind of visualize in the viz layer, that's no problem. We can just simply add those tables without impacting our existing setup for our model. And this completes our model. But of course, there are many, many ways you can model review data. But we've gone down this modeling route because it creates a really intuitive data model. So the fact tables represent a business event, so that could be, say, a review or a review score. And then either bridge tables or dimension tables will represent kind of the descriptive attributes around that event. So that setup makes it really easy to interpret, and it also is the way that we'd naturally ask kind of analytical questions. And you've seen kind of how easy it is for us to add additional tables in there. If we wanted to add like the website dimension or the language dimension. So it's really proving how adjustable it is for changes in scope. And we can also satisfy our self-serve users at Jet2 with how they're split into fact and dimension tables. At Jet2, we have around 1,800 users on Tableau. 150 of those are creators. So the model that I create might not be exactly what that creator actually needs, but with the data being split up with fact and dimension tables, it means they can just cherry pick the exact tables that they want, go away and create their data models. With multiple fact relationships, the biggest reason why we actually chose it is because it does keep the grain of your tables intact. As you've seen, some of our tables are daily, some are monthly, but with relationships, we can actually keep that granularity intact without doing complex aggregations or joins. In the viz layer, that makes our life a lot easier because we're not having to kind of create calculations just to fix metrics to a certain level of detail to get accurate results. And ultimately, that gives us more insight than what we'd get with traditional joins. This sums up our modeling approach, so let's bring the review data to life a little bit. So here we have Hotel California. We do sell thousands of hotels, but obviously I can't show you a real hotel. This is real data, but we've just changed some of the values. So we've got Hotel California, and we've got total number of mentions split across review date with the mention sentiment type, so you've got positive and negative here. And you can see that there's already a pattern forming in that in our summer periods, we do have generally a higher number of mentions. And then in winter, it does tend to tail off. But as a holiday business, that is kind of expected. Because I think we're all kind of guilty of trying to escape English weather when it's meant to be hot and booking somewhere a little bit hotter. So what else can we kind of take from this visualization? And that's looking at kind of other patterns that are forming. So we can see across the 2 years in both Aprils, there is a higher percentage split of positive mentions for both of those Aprils. Very good. But then if we look at a different month, we've got September, and we can actually see there's a higher percentage split of negative mentions. So here we might want to ask ourselves, okay, what is it about April that makes it a great month to stay? and also what is it about September that causes those negative mentions. And this is where we can start looking at different attributes that we have modelled and put into our data model. So here we could start looking at, okay, what was that mention actually about, which we can split up by the category. So having a look at category and then splitting the mentions up by April and September, we can immediately see that April has better mentions about food, experience, and staff. Again, really sorry, it's quite small, but I promise you it is there. This is great to visualize, but the real insight actually comes from the concepts that we have modeled. So overlaying this with concepts, we can see the individual concepts that customers have actually mentioned and what category they relate to. So if we're looking at experience, we can actually see a lot of positive room availability mentions for April, versus if we compare this to September, a lot of those mentions are actually negative. So an action we can take as a business is acknowledging that customers still love to stay at this property during later months in the year, and then we can speak with our hotel providers to see if there's any more rooms available for us to sell. Of course, it is quite common that we have utilised as much as we can really with hoteliers, so there might be cases where we can't really sell more rooms, sorry. But if that is the case, we can actually utilise this data in a different way, because we'd be able to just look at similar concepts mentioned for alternative properties and then offer that as an alternative to customers. This actually uses just one of the base tables in our model. So I'm going to show you kind of what a dashboard looks like, which utilises the entirety of our data model. And it would look something like this. Again, it's quite hard to see, but I'll walk you through it. But here we have a dashboard which consolidates all of the review information from our full data model. So here we'd be looking at fact review mention, fact management response, and fact review scores from our full data model. And at a glance, what it tells us is that review score has actually decreased quite irregularly throughout the season, and that it's reduced by 7 percentage points compared to last season, because we filtered it for season 25 here. As a business, we do operate in seasons, so season 25 is simply just April to October. And then we can also see at a glance kind of the distribution of those reviews, and we'll see that April customers kind of had concerns over, because there's a higher percentage split of negative reviews, so that's something we could potentially investigate. And we can also see that the property is actually responding to less reviews. And then when we split this up by the type of reviews, we can see they're responding less to negative reviews, which isn't ideal, because ideally we want kind of properties to be responding to the negative first and then the positive afterwards. So customers kind of feel heard if they've got that response. And then the rest of the dashboard is kind of split by the juicy bit of the core of our model, so the reviews and mentions, and then this is split by the category it was about, the language it was written within, and also the website it was published to. So I'll take you through a very quick example of how we could actually use this dashboard. So if we look at the top, we've got review scores, and then this is split by the category. So yes, we've got the overall review score, but now we can actually see what's that is broken down by. So we can see for entertainment, the review scores actually increased by 5 percentage points. And in that tooltip, it kind of gives us the trend across that season. And we can see that customers generally are pretty pleased with entertainment, but there is a dip that is forming towards the same point in a season, towards the end of the season, as you'll see. So an action we can take again is kind of going to a hotel provider, just making them aware that yes, they're getting entertainment they're doing very well for what they offer for entertainment, but there's something that needs to kind of change towards the end of the season, because we can see the same thing kind of happening across seasons. But what we could also look into is what customers are mentioning about entertainment to see why it has increased by that 5 percentage points. And we can see here that customers generally are very happy with the entertainment. They're also happy with the music, the showings they have on offer, and even a few mentions about children's entertainment. So that positions it very well for family bookings. So what we can take from this is that hotel California just provide a very wide range of entertainment for all customer types. And this is something that we could really shout about in our marketing to try and attract a wider audience. These are just a few examples of how we could use this dashboard, but what it really gives us is a continuous feedback loop to provide a better experience for our customers. So product and marketing teams have the tool to be able to see changes in quality and what's contributed to those changes. And then this creates a better relationship with our hotel providers because we can visually show them the impact of their services, discuss things that they're really excelling in and areas of improvement. And then on our side, we can chat about all the great things that they're doing great in, and then we can make sure we're advertising to the right customers. And this will hopefully help us to get 5-star results. To kind of give a sense of the real impact the dashboard has had, I want to bring up another quote, not by the Eagles, but by someone in our product team. So we've been able to uncover insights from customers that we wouldn't have picked up before. This has helped us refine our quality strategies and make more targeted improvements with hoteliers, a game changer for how we approach quality. I think this quote nicely sums up the real impact that's come from us modelling and visualising review data. But with modelling that amount of data, it naturally comes with a lot of challenges. So I just want to finish on kind of our lessons learned and recommendations so you don't have to go through the pain that we did on some things. So the first is just consolidating your base tables where you can. What I mean by this is there is only so far that you can kind of stretch multiple fact relationships. It is a great functionality, and of course you can go away and split out your data as granular as you want, but there are performance considerations that you need to take. For every table that you are adding into your model, dependent on what view you do create in the viz layer, you're essentially adding another table for Tableau to query behind the scenes. So it is adding complexity naturally. So what we did have initially is we actually split out the reviews and mentions into 2 different tables, but we realized that was completely tanking performance because in the viz layer, we were creating visualizations that used reviews and mentions in a single view. So that meant it was having to query 2 fact tables just to produce a single view, which can be fine, but for our case it wasn't, and it tanked performance. So what we've taken you through today is kind of the second result after finding kind of the performance concerns that we did have. So I'd recommend just seeing if there are opportunities to kind of consolidate your tables, if it's possible and applicable to do so. The second kind of lesson is aligning your base tables to the grain of your visualization. So the closer they are to the grain or kind of an aggregated version of it, in theory, it's going to be quicker for Tableau to kind of query and also quicker for Tableau to obviously put in front of the user. And the last lesson, is kind of just utilizing cardinality where you can. So cardinality is a performance setting that you'll put on individual relationships. You'll either have many or you'll have one. If you've got many to many, that essentially means on the viz side, it's going to aggregate your data and then it will join it afterwards. One-to-one is kind of the reverse of that, so it will join it and then aggregate it first. So in theory, if you've got one-to-one, it should perform a bit quicker, depending on your circumstance. But for larger models, we found kind of having to play around with that and then seeing how fast the queries perform can be quite helpful because we have found performance benefit from kind of playing around rather than having the default many-to-many, you can have many-to-one instead. And this closes us out. We really hope this has been helpful. Thank you for listening. We'll take on any questions. There might be a mic going around. I'm not too sure, but we'll hover over here anyway if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.